Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at three fascinating Lincoln wheat pennies that every coin collector should know about: the 1945 Lincoln wheat cent, the 1957 Lincoln wheat cent, and the 1955 Lincoln wheat cent. These small 1-cent coins may look ordinary at first glance, but their history, condition, varieties, and minting characteristics can make some examples much more interesting to collectors. We are going to examine each coin carefully and talk about its history, mint mark, rarity, condition, possible varieties, and realistic collecting value. We will also explain what separates an ordinary circulated wheat penny from a truly desirable high-grade or unusual example. So grab your magnifying glass, check your old coin collection, and stay with us until the end because you might discover something interesting hiding among your old pennies. Let's get started. First coin, the 1945 Lincoln wheat cent, also known as the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny, specifically the example with no mint mark. If you have an old wheat penny sitting in a collection jar, drawer, album, or inherited coin collection, this is exactly the kind of coin you should examine carefully before assuming it is only worth 1 cent. The 1945 no mint mark Lincoln cent was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, where the absence of a mint mark is completely normal. The United States Mint produced an enormous number of these coins in 1945, with PCGS reporting a mintage of 1,040,515,000 pieces. But here is where the story becomes interesting. Although the ordinary 1945 Philadelphia cent is common compared with famous Lincoln cent rarities, exceptional examples with superb mint state preservation or unusual varieties can bring dramatically higher prices. In this video we will explore its history, its design, its wartime connection, its minting details, its condition, grades, its possible varieties, and its realistic collector value. We will also discuss why you should be careful with internet claims, suggesting that every 1945 penny is worth millions, because the actual market evidence tells a much more precise story. The year 1945 was an extraordinary period in American history because the United States was still involved in World War II. The Lincoln cent being produced during this period had already undergone an important wartime transformation. In 1943, the Mint famously changed the cent from its traditional copper composition to zinc-coated steel in order to conserve copper for the war effort. By 1944, the Mint returned to a copper-based composition using recovered wartime materials, and the 1945 cent continued with the traditional bronze-like composition. The standard 1945 Lincoln cent weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures about 19 millimeters, and is composed of approximately 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, according to PCGS. The coin features Victor David Brenner's famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, while the reverse displays the two wheat ears surrounding the words 1 cent and United States of America, with the traditional motto EPLUOBUSUNUM above. This design makes the 1945 cent instantly recognizable to collectors today, and connects the coin directly to one of the most important periods in 20th century American history. One of the most important things for a new collector to understand is that a missing mint mark on a 1945 Lincoln cent is not automatically an error. In 1945, the Philadelphia Mint produced cents without a mint mark, while the Denver Mint used a D and the San Francisco Mint used an S. Therefore, when you look underneath the date on a genuine 1945 Lincoln cent, and see no letter, you are generally looking at a Philadelphia minted coin. PCGS identifies the 1945 no mint mark coin as a Philadelphia issue and records its mintage at more than 1 billion pieces. This is extremely important because some online advertisements can make a normal missing mint mark sound like an extraordinary minting mistake. On this particular coin, the absence of the mint mark is simply part of the normal Philadelphia production. That does not mean the coin has no collectible value. It means that collectors must look at other factors such as condition, color, strike surface, preservation, varieties, and verified auction history when determining how desirable the individual coin may be. Now let's talk about the question that everybody wants answered. How much is a 1945 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark worth today? The honest answer is that there is no single value because condition makes an enormous difference. A heavily circulated example may be worth only a small premium over face value, while an attractive uncirculated coin can be worth considerably more. Published market guides show ordinary examples ranging from very small amounts in circulated grades to significantly higher prices in exceptional mint state grades. PCGS records an auction result of $20,400 for a 1945 Philadelphia Lincoln Cent graded MS67 plus red, sold through Heritage Auctions in December 2022. That is a genuine example of how a common date coin can become valuable when it reaches an extraordinary level of preservation. However, this does not mean every uncirculated 1945 penny is worth thousands or millions. Most uncirculated examples are nowhere near the finest grades. The difference between an ordinary uncirculated coin and an exceptionally preserved certified coin can be enormous. When collectors examine an uncirculated 1945 Lincoln Cent, they look for original mint luster, sharp details, clean surfaces, attractive color, and minimal contact marks. Lincoln's hair details and facial features should remain strongly defined, while the wheat ears and lettering on the reverse should show good detail. Collectors also pay close attention to scratches, stains, corrosion, discoloration, carbon spots, and signs of cleaning. A coin that looks shiny because someone polished it is not necessarily more valuable. In fact, cleaning can significantly reduce collector desirability because it removes or alters the original surface. Professional grading companies such as PCGS evaluate coins using standardized grading systems and distinguish between brown and red copper color designations. PCGS lists the 1945 cent in BN, RB, and RD varieties, demonstrating how the color and preservation of the copper surface are important parts of the collectible evaluation. So if you believe you have a particularly beautiful 1945 penny, avoid cleaning it and handle it carefully by the edges. Another reason collectors examine 1945 Lincoln cents carefully is the possibility of die varieties and mint errors. PCGS catalogs a 1945 doubled die obverse F-101 variety among the known varieties of this issue. A genuine double die variety is different from ordinary machine doubling or damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. Collectors may also investigate unusual off-center strikes, clips, die cracks, broad strikes, or other genuine minting abnormalities. However, this is an area where careful authentication is extremely important because photographs and online descriptions can make ordinary imperfections appear rare. A 1945 cent with a genuine recognized variety can be worth more than a normal example, but the value depends on the exact variety and grade. If your coin appears dramatically different from a normal 1945 cent, compare it with trusted numismatic references or consider professional authentication rather than immediately believing a sensational price claim. This is where we need to separate exciting headlines from realistic valuations. You may see videos, advertisements, or social media posts claiming that a 1945 Lincoln penny can be worth millions of dollars. The important thing to understand is that the ordinary 1945 Philadelphia no-mint mark cent is not a $1 million coin based on the documented auction evidence available today. PCGS records the auction record for the regular 1945 Philadelphia cent at $20,400 for an MS67 plus red example. There are other Lincoln wheat cents from different years and with extraordinary errors that have achieved dramatically higher prices, including famous wartime errors such as the 1943 bronze cent. Therefore, when discussing a 1945 penny on YouTube, it is much better to say that an exceptional example could be worth substantially more than face value, rather than promising viewers that every coin is worth millions. Accurate information builds trust with your audience and helps collectors understand the difference between a common date and a genuinely rare condition or variety. If you find a 1945 Lincoln wheat penny without a mint mark, start by examining the date and making sure it really reads 1945. Next, look underneath the date and confirm that there is no D or S mint mark. Then inspect both sides under good lighting. Look for original reddish copper color, strong mint luster, sharp lettering, strong wheat details, and minimal marks. Pay special attention to the date and the major lettering if you suspect doubling. Do not use abrasive materials, chemicals, polishing cloths, or household cleaners because these can damage the original surface. You can also compare your coin with authenticated examples from established numismatic references. Remember that an uncirculated coin should show no wear from circulation, although it can still have contact marks from being stored or transporting with other coins. If your 1945 penny appears to be an unusually high-grade example, professional grading may be worthwhile because certification can provide an independent assessment of its condition. If your 1945 no-mint mark Lincoln cent appears valuable, do not rush to sell it based solely on an internet listing. Asking prices are not necessarily the same as actual completed auction prices. A seller can list a normal 1945 penny for thousands or even millions of dollars, but that does not prove anyone would actually pay that amount. Instead, collectors should look for documented sales of comparable coins in comparable grades. PCGS records provide an excellent example of why grade matters. The regular 1945 Philadelphia cent has an impressive documented auction result when certified at the very high MS67 plus red level. If your coin is genuinely uncirculated and appears exceptional, consider having it evaluated by a reputable professional grading service or experienced numismatist before making a major selling decision. Keep the coin in a proper protective holder and avoid touching the surfaces with your fingers. For collectors, the history and preservation of a coin can be just as interesting as its monetary value. So there you have it, everyone. The 1945 Lincoln wheat cent without a mint mark is an important piece of American coinage history and an interesting coin for collectors to examine. The absence of a mint mark indicates Philadelphia production and is normal for this issue, which had a reported mintage of 1,040,515,000 coins. Most ordinary examples are not worth millions, but exceptional high-grade coins and recognized varieties can command impressive premiums. The documented PCGS auction record of $20,400 for an MS67 plus red example shows just how dramatically condition can change the value of a common-date Lincoln cent. So before you spend or sell your old wheat pennies, take a closer look at the date, condition, color, surfaces, and possible varieties. If you enjoyed this video and want more information about valuable Lincoln wheat pennies, rare coins, mint errors, and fascinating pieces of American history, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with other coin collectors. Keep checking those old coin jars, collections, and inherited albums, because you never know what interesting piece of history might be waiting to be discovered. Thanks for watching and happy collecting. Next coin. The 1957 Lincoln wheat cent, also commonly called the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny, with no mint mark. If you have one of these old 1-cent coins sitting in a collection jar, inherited coin album, or an old box of pennies, you may be wondering whether it could be worth much more than its original 1-cent face value. The first important point is that a 1957 cent with no mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and the absence of a mint mark is completely normal for this issue. Philadelphia produced approximately 282,540,000 examples in 1957, so this is not a rare date simply because it lacks a mint mark. But condition, color, strike quality, die varieties, errors, and professional certification can make an enormous difference in collector interest and price. So in today's video, we will examine the history of this fascinating coin, explain what the no mint mark designation means, discuss realistic modern values, explore why some exceptional examples can command surprisingly strong prices, and explain what you should check before deciding that your coin is a valuable rarity. The 1957 Lincoln wheat cent belongs to the famous Lincoln cent series that began in 1909 and continued with the wheat reverse through 1958. The obverse features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner, while the reverse displays the two wheat ears surrounding the denomination and the words 1 cent and United States of America. By 1957, this design was already approaching the end of its long run, because the wheat reverse would disappear after 1958, when the Lincoln Memorial reverse was introduced in 1959. The 1957 cent therefore has an important place in the final years of the classic wheat penny era. The coin was made from the traditional bronze composition of approximately 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, with a diameter of about 19 millimeters and a weight of about 3.11 grams. This combination of historical importance and familiar design makes the 1957 cent popular with collectors even though the date itself is relatively common. One of the biggest misunderstandings surrounding old American coins is the belief that a missing mint mark automatically means a coin is rare. For the 1957 Lincoln wheat cent, that is not correct. The Philadelphia Mint did not place a mint mark on these cents, so a normal 1957 cent without a mint letter is a Philadelphia issue. In other words, if you look underneath the date and find no letter such as D or S, that is exactly what you should expect for a Philadelphia 1957 cent. Philadelphia produced 540,000 regular strike examples that year, while Denver produced more than 1,019,5070 cents. Therefore, simply seeing 1957 with no mint mark should not make anyone believe they automatically possess a $1 million coin. The real story begins when we examine the coin's condition and characteristics. Collectors should carefully inspect the date, Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, the wheat stalks, the rim, and the overall surface for signs of wear, damage, unusual striking characteristics, or legitimate mint errors. Now let's talk about the word that can make a tremendous difference in the value of a coin: uncirculated. An uncirculated coin is one that has not experienced the normal circulation we're seen on coins that have passed through thousands of hands. However, simply looking shiny does not automatically make a coin uncirculated. A coin can have been cleaned or polished and still look bright, while actually being worth less to knowledgeable collectors. Professional grading services examine details such as wear, marks, luster, strike quality, color, and preservation. For copper-based Lincoln cents, color designation is also important because coins may be categorized as brown, red-brown, or red. PCGS specifically lists the 1957 cent in BN, RB, and RD varieties, and records a strong auction result for an exceptionally graded brown example. This is why two 1957 Philadelphia cents that appear similar to a casual observer can have dramatically different market values. A beautiful original coin with excellent surfaces and strong original color can attract considerably more collector attention than a scratched, cleaned, or heavily circulated example. As of the current market information available in 2026, a normal 1957 Lincoln wheat cent is generally not worth millions of dollars. Typical examples can be worth only a small amount above face value, while better preserved uncirculated examples bring higher prices. USA Coin Book currently lists estimated values ranging from only a few cents in circulated grades to roughly $0.36 to $1.24 or more in uncirculated mint state condition, depending on grade. Another market data source gives substantially higher figures for very high mint state grades, illustrating how sensitive prices can be to grade and the specific marketplace. For the very finest certified coins, prices can rise dramatically. PCGS reports an auction record of $2,280 for a 1957 1CBN graded MS64BN, sold by Heritage Auctions on September 7, 2017. These figures demonstrate an important lesson for our viewers. A valuable coin does not necessarily mean a $1 million coin. Realistic valuation depends on actual auction results, certification, grade, rarity, eye appeal, and whether the coin possesses a genuine recognized variety or mint error. This is where we need to separate exciting YouTube headlines from verified numismatic evidence. You may see internet listings or videos claiming that an ordinary 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny is worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Those claims should be treated with extreme caution unless they are supported by documented auction records from reputable numismatic sources. A seller can place a coin online with an enormous asking price, but an asking price is not the same thing as a completed sale. Even collectors discussing wheat cents online frequently point out that common dates should not be valued from unrealistic internet listings. For this particular 1957 Philadelphia issue, the documented evidence shows that it is a common date wheat cent with potentially interesting value in exceptional grades and varieties, but there is no credible basis for telling viewers that every 1957 no-mint mark cent is worth millions. That does not make the coin uninteresting. In fact, the search for an exceptionally preserved example, a genuine mint error, or an unusual variety is exactly what makes coin collecting exciting. If you have a 1957 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat cent, begin by examining it under good lighting without cleaning it. Look carefully at the date, and make sure the coin really is dated 1957. Next, inspect Lincoln's hair and cheek, because these areas can reveal circulation wear and help determine whether the coin may genuinely be in mint state condition. Turn the coin over and examine the wheat ears, lettering, denomination, rim, and fields for unusual characteristics. Look for possible off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, doubled features, unusual die deterioration, or other characteristics that might deserve professional examination. Be careful, however, because damage caused after the coin left the mint can sometimes look like an error. Scratches, gouges, corrosion, artificial coloring, polishing, and chemical treatment can significantly reduce collector appeal. If your coin appears exceptionally preserved or has a genuinely unusual mint characteristic, consider getting an opinion from an experienced numismatist or professional grading service rather than relying on a random online advertisement. Professional certification can be especially important when the potential value becomes significant. A grading service evaluates the coin and places it in a protective holder with an assigned grade and identification information. For a common 1957 cent, professional grading may not always make economic sense because grading fees can exceed the value of an ordinary specimen. But when a coin appears exceptionally high grade, has outstanding original red color, or shows a potentially important error or variety, certification can provide confidence to buyers and sellers. PCGS records demonstrate how much the finest quality examples can differ from ordinary coins. The 1957 cent is represented in multiple color categories, including BN, RB, and RD, and the auction history includes a $2,280 result for an MS64 BN example. This is why collectors should never judge a coin's value simply by its age. A 1957 penny is nearly 70 years old, but age alone does not make it rare. Preservation and scarcity are far more important factors. There is also something historically special about holding a 1957 wheat cent even when the coin is not rare. This penny was produced during the final chapter of the wheat reverse design. People used these coins for everyday purchases at a time when 1 cent had considerably more purchasing power than it does today. A 1957 cent may have traveled through shops, homes, banks, vending machines, and pockets before eventually being saved by a collector. When you hold one today, you are holding a small piece of everyday American history. The 1957 Philadelphia issue is particularly interesting because its no mint mark status identifies its Philadelphia origin, and its large production run means that many examples survived. For collectors, the goal is not always to find a coin worth a fortune. Sometimes the greatest reward is discovering a beautifully preserved historical object, learning how it was made, understanding why its design changed, and building a collection around the story of American coinage. So before we finish today's video, remember the most important facts about the 1957 Lincoln wheat cent with no mint mark. It was struck at Philadelphia. Approximately 282.54 million regular examples were produced, and the absence of a mint mark is normal rather than an automatic sign of rarity. Ordinary examples generally have modest collector value, while exceptionally preserved certified coins can be worth much more, with documented high-grade auction results reaching into the thousands rather than millions. So if someone tells you that every 1957 no mint mark wheat penny is automatically worth millions, don't accept that claim without evidence. Instead, examine the grade, color, surfaces, strike, varieties, and possible errors, and compare your coin with documented sales. And if you enjoyed this detailed journey into the 1957 Lincoln wheat cent, please subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with fellow coin collectors and treasure hunters. Keep checking those old jars, albums, inherited collections, and boxes of coins, because you never know what interesting piece of history you may discover next. Thanks for watching, happy collecting, and I'll see you in the next video. Next coin. The 1955D Lincoln wheat cent, also commonly called the 1955D Lincoln wheat penny. If you have one of these old 1-cent coins sitting in a collection, a coin jar, or an inherited group of pennies, you may be wondering whether it could be worth serious money today. The first important point is that the ordinary 1955D cent is not a $1 million coin, and it is important to separate genuine market values from sensational claims that appear online. The Denver Mint produced 563,257,500 examples of the 1955D Lincoln cent, making it a relatively plentiful issue compared with some of the famous rare Lincoln cents. NGC lists mint state examples from approximately $0.50 to $1,350 depending on color designation and grade, with the highest values applying to exceptionally preserved red examples. So if you own a normal uncirculated 1955D penny, it can certainly be collectible and potentially valuable, but the exact grade and condition are extremely important. In today's video, we will examine its history, design, mint mark, condition, varieties, errors, grading, realistic market values, and the important differences between an ordinary 1955D cent and a truly exceptional example. The Lincoln wheat cent has an important place in American coin history because it was the first regular United States circulating coin to feature a real historical American president. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln cent was introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The familiar obverse shows Lincoln's portrait, while the reverse of the wheat cent displays two wheat ears surrounding the inscriptions 1 cent and United States of America. The wheat reverse remained in production through 1958 before the Lincoln Memorial reverse replaced it in 1959. That means the 1955D belongs to the final years of one of America's most recognizable coin designs. The coin itself is a bronze cent with a weight of about 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19 millimeters, according to NGC. More than a simple 1 cent piece, the 1955D represents a period when Lincoln wheat cents were still everyday money in the United States. Millions of Americans handled these coins in stores, banks, vending machines, and cash registers, and today collectors preserve them as small pieces of mid-20th century American history. One of the easiest ways to identify this particular coin is the D mint mark. The D indicates that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. A 1955 Lincoln cent without a mint mark is the Philadelphia issue, while a 1955D carries the D identifying Denver, and a 1955S carries the S identifying San Francisco. The Denver production figure for the 1955D was 563,257,500 coins, according to NGC and PCGS. The mint mark can be found on the obverse below the date in the area near Lincoln's portrait. When examining your coin, you should use good lighting and avoid cleaning or scraping the surface just to make the mint mark easier to see. A genuine original surface is much more important to collectors than a bright appearance created by polishing. If your coin has a clearly visible D and the date reads 1955, then you have the basic 1955D issue. However, identification is only the first step because two coins with exactly the same date and mint mark can have dramatically different values depending on grade, color, surface quality, and possible varieties. Condition is one of the biggest factors controlling the value of a 1955D Lincoln cent. A circulated example may have scratches where discoloration and flattened details, while an uncirculated example can retain much more of its original mint appearance. Professional grading companies use numerical grades to describe the preservation of coins, and Lincoln cents can also receive color designations such as BN for brown, RB for red-brown, and RD for red. NGC explains that red examples retain at least 85% of their original red luster, while red-brown examples retain at least 15%. This distinction is particularly important for copper-based Lincoln cents because collectors often pay substantial premiums for coins that retain attractive original red color. For the 1955D issue, NGC's current guide gives mint state brown examples roughly from $0.50 to $12.50, red-brown examples from approximately $0.75 to $17.50, and red examples from approximately $2.50 to $1,350, depending on grade. These figures demonstrate why simply saying that a coin is uncirculated is not enough. A high-grade red coin can be worth vastly more than a lower-grade brown coin, even though both are technically uncirculated. Now let's address the exciting question that many viewers are asking. Could an ordinary 1955D Lincoln wheat penny really be worth millions of dollars? Based on the established price and auction information available for this issue, there is no reliable evidence that a normal 1955D cent is $1 million coin. In fact, PCGS records an auction result of $8,400 for a PCGS MS67 plus RD 1955D Lincoln cent sold by Heritage Auctions on August 18, 2024. That is a very impressive amount for a 1-cent coin, but it is nowhere near millions. This distinction is extremely important for responsible coin content because online advertisements and social media videos sometimes use enormous figures to attract attention. A coin can be fascinating and valuable without being worth millions. The truly extraordinary prices associated with Lincoln wheat cents usually involve famous rarities or major mint errors rather than an ordinary example of a high mintage date. Therefore, if your 1955D is uncirculated, you should absolutely examine it carefully, but you should not assume that the coin is worth millions simply because it is old or shine. Although the ordinary 1955D is not $1 million coin, varieties and minting errors can make a Lincoln cent considerably more interesting. PCGS lists several related 1955D varieties, including double die obverse varieties and repunched mintmark varieties, along with additional die varieties. This is where careful examination becomes especially important. On a genuine double die variety, The doubling is part of the die design and can appear in specific areas of the lettering or date, rather than looking like simple damage or machine doubling. A repunched mint mark can also be collectible depending on the exact variety and condition. If you think your coin shows an unusual feature, you should not immediately assume it is a valuable error. Photograph the coin clearly under good lighting and compare it with reliable references from professional grading organizations. Major varieties should ideally be authenticated by an established grading service when significant money is involved. Remember that scratches, dents, discoloration, and post-mint damage can create appearances that resemble errors but are not actually mint varieties. A truly attractive uncirculated 1955D can be desirable because preservation becomes increasingly difficult as the grade rises. Even coins that were never circulated could have contact marks from being stored with other coins or handled during production and transportation. Collectors examine the fields around Lincolns, portrait the lettering, the date, the mint mark, and the reverse wheat ears for marks and imperfections. They also pay attention to original luster and color. PCGS lists an impressive MS67 Plus RD auction record of $8,400 for the 1955D, showing that an exceptionally preserved example can command a substantial premium. This is an excellent lesson for collectors. Age alone does not determine value. A 1955D cent has been around for more than 7 decades, but millions were produced. What separates a normal example from a premium example is often preservation, eye appeal, color, grade, and variety. If your coin has bright original red color, minimal contact marks, and strong detail, it may be worth having examined professionally, especially if you believe it could qualify for a high mint state grade. If you have a 1955D wheat penny at home, start by examining it without cleaning it. Cleaning is one of the biggest mistakes inexperienced collectors can make because polishing or harsh chemicals can permanently damage the original surface and reduce collector appeal. Use a soft surface and good natural or neutral lighting. Look first at the date and confirm that it is 1955, then locate the D mint mark beneath the date. Examine Lincoln's portrait for wear and contact marks, and then turn the coin over to study the wheat ears and lettering. Look for unusual doubling, but remember that not every apparent doubling is a genuine doubled die. You can also weigh the coin if you have a suitable accurate scale. NGC lists the standard weight at 3.11 grams. Weight alone cannot authenticate a rare variety, but it can help identify obvious problems. If your coin appears unusually well preserved or has a possible recognized variety, consider obtaining an opinion from an experienced numismatist or submitting it to a professional grading service before making an expensive buying or selling decision. So what should viewers realistically expect from a 1955D Lincoln wheat cent today? The answer depends heavily on condition and color. NGC's current published guide gives mint state 1955D examples a broad range from about $0.50 for lower mint state brown examples up to $1,350 for the highest listed red examples. PCGS auction information shows that an exceptionally high-grade MS67 Plus RD example reached $8,400 in 2024, illustrating that individual auction results can exceed guide prices when an unusually desirable coin attracts strong competition. These figures should be presented as reference points rather than guarantees, because coin prices change and individual examples vary. A coin's actual selling price can depend on certification, grade, color designation, eye appeal, population rarity, auction demand, and buyer interest. Therefore, if somebody tells you that every 1955D penny is worth thousands or millions of dollars, be extremely cautious. The correct approach is to identify the exact variety, determine the condition, and then compare it with credible price guides and documented sale. The story of the 1955D Lincoln wheat cent, a fascinating American 1-cent coin from the final decade of the famous wheat reverse design. Although an ordinary 1955D is not realistically a $1 million coin, an exceptional high-grade example can be worth significantly more than its 1-cent face value, and recognized varieties can make the search even more exciting. NGC records a Denver mintage of 563,257,500, while professional market information demonstrates how strongly value can rise for superb red examples. So before you spend or sell an old wheat penny, take a moment to inspect the date, mint mark, condition, color, and possible varieties. You never know what interesting piece of American history may be hiding in an old collection. If you enjoyed this detailed coin investigation, please subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with other collectors who love searching for valuable Lincoln wheat cents. Keep checking your old coins carefully, keep learning the difference between genuine rarity and online hype, and most importantly, keep collecting because every old coin has a story. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next exciting coin video. Thanks for watching.